All right, guys, good morning. How you guys doing? Okay, good. This morning I'm going to quickly it's not going to be a message. I want to answer a question that somebody asked me a couple of days ago. I just put this thing in silent. A couple of days ago, I was in a store, bought something. I went up to the cash register to pay for it, and the guy asked me a question, and he heard my accent, right? He heard my American accent, and he said, "Oh, are you American?" I said, "Yeah." And this guy, for some reason, we didn't talk about Christianity. I wasn't wearing a Jesus shirt or anything. He started telling me, now that he knew I was American, about these American pastors that he's been listening to on like YouTube and podcasts. And he started naming names and good teachers, and I told him that's great. And this guy started telling me, now I'm just trying to buy my stuff and get out of there, but this guy's talking, and I didn't want to cut him off. But it was weird. This guy started telling me that about how he had just gotten out of a certain way of thinking. It was a certain church, and there was some not good ways of thinking in there, not ways of thinking about God that were right. And he's been working really hard on like spiritually strengthening himself, growing spiritually, growing in real good doctrine. And it was really good, and it was hopeful, and it took quite a while to actually get through with this guy. Morning. It took quite a while to get through with this guy. I was just trying to buy my stuff and get out of there. So I was about to leave the store encouraged and feeling good, but then the guy got really serious, and he told me that he has one major problem, though, with all of this doctrine and stuff that he's hearing from people. He said, "I still can't figure out is this one thing." And this question that he actually asked me about, he told me that he has this problem. It's probably like the most common question that people have about God, Christians and non-believers, whoever. And the question is this: if God is good, and if he really does love us, then why does evil exist? If God is good and he wants what's best for me, then why do bad things still happen to me, right? Everybody asks that. So I'm in a store trying to buy something, and the guy asks me this question, and I don't know how to properly answer it. So I gave him an answer, and it's the same answer I'm going to try to. It's a huge question, and there's probably 1,000 different angles you can look at it from. But I'm going to do my best in the next 4 or 5 minutes to look at it from one particular angle and just to talk about it. So one really important thing that we have to understand, which we do, I believe most of us here, is that most of the bad things, if we think about it, most of the bad things that happen to us or other people in life are due to sin. So it's either, and I'm not saying it's because of our own sin. Sometimes it is. Sometimes we choose to do sin, we choose to do the wrong thing, and it has consequences, right? A lot of times it's the result of somebody else's sin. Other people have chosen to do the wrong things, and it has an effect, and it eventually affects us. Maybe if it's not direct, like robbing or hurting somebody else, it can end up being the result of somebody high up in some corporation making a bad decision, or in the government making a sinful decision where it was the wrong thing to do, and we're affected by it. A lot of the things, most of the bad things that happen to us are the result of somebody's sin, okay? So if we understand that, I think we can ask the question, instead of asking, why does evil exist? It doesn't cover all the grounds, but in this instance, instead of asking the question, why does evil exist, we can ask the question, why does sin exist, right? Because that's kind of getting more down to the root of it. So, okay, I'm going to do this in just 5 minutes. If we think back to Genesis, in the beginning, when God created humans, he said, "Let us create man in our own image," right? He created people in his image. That means a lot of different things, but one of the big attributes that God gave us when he made us from himself, one of his attributes that he gave us is this idea of free will, right? Now, free will means that we have the ability to look at two options. There's two options right here. And we can know which option is the correct option to choose, is the right option to choose. But free will means that we have this ability to still choose this one or choose this one. We have the free will to do either. So, God could have just made us like obedient robots, right? He could have made us so that we always do his will. We never choose the wrong thing. God definitely could have done that. But he wanted to make man as a free will being. He wanted to make people in his image. So, for a moment, pretend with me. It'll be easier for some people than for others. Pretend with me for a moment that you're God, right? And now you're going to create a being with free will. What's the one thing you need to do when you create this being with free will? You need to give this being at least one rule to break. Because if there's no rule to break, that being won't have the ability to make a wrong choice. If there's nothing that the being knows is wrong, then the being can't do the wrong thing. Everything the being does, it will be right. So you have to give that being at least one rule that it can break. It can choose to either break or not break, right? So if we go back, now we're thinking Adam and Eve. They're in the Garden of Eden. In the beginning, God gave them the bare minimum required for free will, this one rule. He said, do not, you see, it's a garden, right, full of trees and whatever. He said, this one tree, just this only one tree, do not eat its fruit. Don't take its fruit, don't eat it. The rest of it, you can do anything else. Just don't eat the fruit from this one tree. I don't personally think there was anything magical about this tree. I don't think there was anything magical about its fruit. People might argue with me on that sometimes because there's a lot of crazy ideas out there. But I think God could have given them any rule. I think God could have said, this spot right here, do not dig a hole in this one spot right here. Here's my one rule. Or he could have said, that stone right there, you must not move that stone. He didn't say those things. Probably good reasons behind it. But his one rule was, don't eat the fruit off of this one tree. The fruit off of this one tree. And we know the story. We've heard the story, Adam and Eve. They did. They ended up choosing, free will, choosing the wrong option. They ate the fruit. They sinned. And because of their sin, it caused destruction. That's what starts literally, the beginning of the Bible. It caused destruction. When we sin, when we choose this wrong option, it pretty much always causes, or not pretty much always, it does, in some small way or in some large way, it causes destruction, either in our lives or in other people's lives. This wasn't just something for Adam and Eve. If we look at Romans, the same thing still applies today. Paul talked about this, and I didn't understand this until recently, but Paul talks about this in Romans. He said, for the law, God's law, results in God's wrath. Because where there is no law, there is no sin. So we just talked about where there's no law, there's no sin. A couple of chapters later, he says, it was God's law that showed me my sin. I would never have known, for instance, that coveting is wrong if the law had said, you must not covet. I'll wrap it up there. So until the next age, sin will always exist. People will continue to choose the wrong option oftentimes because we have free will. And that means that bad things will continue to happen. So if we want to ask the question, why do bad things happen? One of the big reasons is because of free will. Because God is not going to autonomously step in and stop us from having free will. He's not going to force us to choose the right thing, ever. Because he created man in his image. He wants us to be able to choose right from wrong. So we can't control what other people do, but it's good to just recognize this, the fact that we have to use this gift of free will that God gave us in the proper way. And yeah. Anyways, this guy asked me about it a couple days ago, and that's the only answer I was able to really give him in the moment there, because he was asking me, so God must be evil because then evil exists, so God created evil, and there's all these crazy ideas. It's like, no, people choose to do right or wrong, and we can't blame God for those things, which a lot of people do. Okay. Father, thank you so much for this.